I want to tell you about freeze machines for Ableton Live, a series of rack instruments and also an instrument effect that's put together by DivKid for us after I was kind of really digging the whole Frozen reverb vibe, and I thought it'd be possible to put something together. This is a collection of 5 instruments that work in Ableton Live Suite, plus a live effects input which doesn't require Suite, which you could buy separately from us and enables you to freeze almost anything. So here I've got my vocal that's just come in, but I could also just as easily add a live synth input just for space. I've got a K oscillator here, so let's just add a bit of that. We can shape the tone of the input with this tonal tilt. We've also got a shimmer effect. If we take that down, a ping pong and a stereo delay, but it allows us to build up these textures. If I just turn that off a sec and start again, maybe I'll bring something a little bit more. That's very nice. So let's go to one of the instruments, which is the PWM freeze, why ever not? And this one is a PWM with a sub-octave, which allows you to build up additional layers. Let's try this one. Maybe we'll try a low note in there as well. And with the tonal tilt on this guy, you can create some really nice low kind of drones. But the thing is, once you've got it in there, you can then reshape the sound and play over the top with balance of the freeze machine. I've got a little pattern here, which is basically those notes. So let's add some more stuff. We've got an electric piano freeze machine, which again gives you specific tweakability over those sounds. So I like that. Let's put some of that in there. And these all macros run on, this is running on push, but you can easily map these via just a MIDI controller. Yeah, we'll keep that one, turn that down a little bit. Let's try, we've also got an FM, try FM freeze. Oh, it's a bit loud. Let's take that down a bit. But what we can do is change the FM depth. So generally speaking, the macros are designed to get the most out of each individual instrument. Let's get a bit of that going on. Hello there. I want to tell you about freeze, and these all macros run on, this is running on push, but you can easily map these via just a MIDI controller. Yeah, we'll keep that one, turn that. No audio yet, Jamie.
No audio?
Ah, got some. There we go.
Got some?
Yep.
Lovely. Yes.
I'm just going to carry running this.
Yeah. Okay, I'll be back.
I want to tell you about, change the FM depth. So generally speaking, the macros are designed to get the most out of each individual instrument. Let's get a bit of that going on. We can dull that down with a tonal tilt. Let's go to the Saw 5 freeze. Now this is a sawtooth with a VCO 5th up. here we can create these beautiful, take the filter down a bit. Very nice. Let's put a beat in. Let's go to the additive, which is the final of the 5. We can blend between 3 wave. All have got an envelope shape, so this is a sort of slower, or we can make it. And if we stop, all of this stuff is still held in the edit buffer. So what we could do is just add an audio track, and then if we wanted to actually record the output of those freeze machines, we can just select one of those as the input, and that means that we could get that recorded in an audio clip. And the thing about these is you can build up these beautiful textures, and it's great for these sort of soundscapes, and there's a little bit of chorus in there and all kind of other nifty stuff within each of the freeze machines that just allows you to build up very specific and very kind of unique and interesting patches. You could buy these directly from us, all 6 of them, which is the 5 instruments which do require Ableton Live Suite 9.6 and above, and also the effects, Freeze Effects, which is a standalone which doesn't require Suite. You can actually run that in a standard version of Ableton Live and still get some really great effects from it. They are £9.99 for all 6 of them, or you can just buy the Freeze Effects on its own separately, and the price for that will scroll below. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I'm going to get back to some freeze fun. Doug Chase, who's guesting today. Today we have Jamie Liddell, who will be coming along. And we've also got Gaz Williams and hopefully Ty Unwin as well. So a bunch of people. And we're probably going to be talking about Music Messer. I know it wasn't terribly synth heavy. There were, however, a couple of exciting releases, and I saw some good stuff there as well. But yes, it was a hard work. The thing about Music Master, it seems to have sort of dwindled a little bit. There's a lot less people going. They're all going to be at Super Booth, or a lot of people, most of the synth guys are going to be at Super Booth, and that is 3rd of May. We'll be there for that. But it just means that what's happening, because the site of Music Master is so massive, it's just, they haven't actually shrunk the footprint of the show to match the number of exhibitors. So it's actually, you could walk a mile from the front gate to the furthest hall, and that really does, for an old man like me, take it out of you. So yeah, it was hard work, but still, you know, good. It's a shame it's not, you know, back only maybe 4 or 5 years ago, it was really really rocking as a show. But I think the Super Booth guys really sort of recognised the niche, because obviously it's a very corporate event, and Super Booth is not so much. So it appeals to a lot more of the smaller guys and some of the more innovative types. We have Mr. Unwin, I think, there. There he is. Have we got some audio for Ty? Hello, Ty. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm good. I think we've got your... Let me just check that we've got some... no, I don't want that. I want this one. Let's see if we've got any stuff across your... Yeah, it looks like we got... Okay, don't think we've got... No, there's no...
How is the... I said it's from the right. You've told me how to do it. I don't know how many times. I keep forgetting.
What is it you're trying to do? Sorry?
The blank panel on the right of this...
Oh, the chat room. You press the speech bubble and it'll go away, and then you end up with full screen. I think. I'm trying to remember now. There's a sort of transport bar below.
Remove. Hang on. No.
I can't remember because I can't dial in because you've dialed.
I know it's fine. It's just you've told me how to get rid of it once, and it's just a pain in the.
You can't remember. I can't remember either.
I have other things to worry about.
Yeah. Basically, when the transport bar, if you see like the hang up call and the kind of mute and all that stuff, one of the icons.
Got it.
Yeah. There we go.
Got it. Wonderful.
Hooray! Let's see. We go 2's up. There we go. We can go 2's up there. I was just playing a bit of. I've done a new demo for our freeze machines thing, which I think sounds quite nice.
Oh, cool.
So I've been meaning to do it for ages, but things like Music Messer and what have you get in the way. So that's the way it goes. So, hey, apparently, Ty, the sun's out there.
Oh my God! Don't tell me about it.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Fortunately, in here, it's that time of year again when I start singing the praises of having aircon. But God, I just remember the good old days of me in boxer shorts, and
before Skype video.
Yeah. To be fair, I'm bashful. I would have been fine. I wouldn't have bothered. It would have been fine. Yeah. So it's lovely in here, but God, it's hot outside.
It's getting there. It's getting there. I'm looking forward to a bit of heat. Actually, it was quite nice and warm in Music Messer for a couple of days. I mean, shockingly so. We got there. It was like, oh my God, we had to open all the windows in the room because it was just so warm.
Can I make a pun? Can I make a pun there and go, hey, it's the only thing that was hot there?
Yeah, maybe. I think that's a fair comment. I think the thing is there are things there, but it just feels very lacking in energy generally, the Music Messer. It does, because it's the closest thing that we go to NAMM. NAMM is like all high, whoa, and then you go to Music Messer and it's just sort of, it's like in ECG terms, it's like the flat line. But having said that, there was quite a lot going on. You just got to look for it. And I think the problem is it doesn't generate enough excitement for people to bother to look for it. So you end up with this kind of like sense that nothing really was going on. I mean, I think we got nearly 60 videos up, which, okay, granted, they're not all kind of hot products, but there was there was a really interesting one I shot with a guy called 10 Easy or Easy 10, which was a measurement system. There's a lot of that because there's a lot of live sound there with the Pro Lighting sound. It was a system that allows you to measure the front of house so that the engineer can maximize the amount of time that they can be near the limit, because depending on which country you're in, you get 10 minutes at 2 dB over, or you get half an hour with an average. So if you've got two really loud songs, you need to have like an acoustic number for 10 minutes afterwards, or the singer has to tell a really long story so that you can then come back in with another loud thing and turn it up again. And it's just absolutely fascinating. And the guy I spoke to, a guy called Oliver, he was telling me some really interesting stories, one of which was there's a festival somewhere in Germany where a festival goer sued them because apparently they went over, and he said his hearing was damaged and they had to pay him now 10,000 euros a year for the rest of his life. So it's pretty serious business. I mean, I get the sort of fact that, you're going to a live concert. It's possible there may be loud things there, It's just as possible there could be somebody in the crowd who screams right next to your ear when their heartthrob gets on stage, and that does it for you. But there's all these other interesting things, like if you're at a venue, a smaller venue where these sound pressures still come into force, what happens if the guitarist is on stage with a very loud amp? Is that responsibility of the venue or the PA, because you're not putting it through the PA? Or, there's all this masses and masses of grey area, and it just sounds like an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, you know what I'm going to say, just because of the way I am, but I have no sympathy for that kind of rubbish at all, because I don't have any sympathy, because I'm not saying you know what you're going to be going in for, but it's surely there's some kind of
There is a chance it might be loud. Yeah.
There's always going to be a chance, and you are perfectly capable of buying, like you and I have got. You know, you get little, whether even if you just stick bloody paper in your ears, but you know, I've got ear protectors that are always, every gig I go to, I have little ear protectors just in case that it's going to be a loud one. And you know, it's the fact of someone that kind of mommy state of going and then complaining.
It is interesting. Actually, that reminds me, when we went to see Kraftwerk, there was that one song, I forget which one it was, when it was like, oh my god, this is actually really loud. It was actually really loud. The rest of it was kind of manageable, but they really cranked it for that one, and it was kind of, even I, who quite likes a bit of loud music, was kind of thinking, I'm not sure about this. This feels a bit too much, you know.
The thing I tell you what the problem was with that is the fact that normally, you know, of all people, when things go loud, they normally start to be on the edge of getting into distortion and whatever. The problem was with that is that the sound was so incredibly clean and so it's still incredibly precise, but so incredibly loud at the same time. That's why it felt uncomfortable, because it was just, nothing was breaking up, nothing was going, was it? It was all just bloody loud in that song. But
then they must have done the same thing where they used that, they built it all up, because I forget what the speed limit, this is what the guy said it was, what the speed limit is in the UK. It's different in every country, and you have to dial it into your system, and then it just shows you a kind of, you know, a representation of where you need to be, what you need to do now, kind of thing. So I don't know what it is in the UK, but they were fairly manageable most of the time. And then that was just very loud. But all the songs were quite long, weren't they? Because they haven't got they haven't got much material. So they were all about 6 or 7 minutes long.
They haven't got much material. That's an interesting way of looking at things. They were just long because they're Kraftwerk. And so they just wanted, after they got the theme over, they want to bore you for the next 5 minutes and then come back at the end. So it's...
Yeah, but there was a lot of ear protection, a lot of in-ear monitoring stuff, and a lot of measurement stuff at Music Messe. Certainly on the Pro Light and Sound, but they had, like, in the arena, they had several line arrays. You know, so you'd be listening to, you know, line array 1, like all these different manufacturers, and some of them were on the edge because they had the big measurement display on a massive huge screen. But yeah, there was some really brilliant. I mean, some of the stuff that the sort of Chinese or the foreign exhibitors that were showing these kind of video walls that were the size of a house and were like 8K resolution. I mean, they were honestly out of this world. I mean, you would just look at that and just go, "Oh my goodness!" You know, I didn't realise. Or 8K there was an 8K projection. I was looking at the wall and it was so detailed. It was astonishing. I mean, it was about the size of 2 large sofas, you know, stuck together. I mean, it was absolutely enormous, but that's just the way these things go.
That will be in our lounge in 2 years' time.
Well, quite possibly. I mean, they're very bright because they're you know, each pixel is represented on it. You know, it must be, I mean, they must be terribly expensive. But yeah, they are. But I'm sure they are also terribly, I mean, they must be great fun to play with. I mean, you know, make our stuff here look kind of very pedestrian. You know, we're some people were asking me on YouTube, oh god, 1080 so low, when are you going to start doing it in 4K? And I'm just sort of like, you mad? Can you imagine the amount? I mean, I've just bought this PC that can handle 1080 with reasonably. If I went to 4K, I mean, at the moment, if I record a full project here on 6 cameras and, you know, we do like a 10-20 minute shoot, that's 300 gigs.
Yeah.
So that would be 1.5 terabytes at 4K, and I doubt if there's a hard drive fast enough to be able to record that. So
when we were doing the Midge thing, well, the Midge thing was shot at 4K, and it was literally just, it was, you know, terabytes meant nothing. They were literally just gobbling everything up. It was ridiculous. Yeah, it's and
it's not. I mean, yeah, I don't know that it's necessary. I mean, we don't even use sort of high-end video codecs to record all this stuff. If we were recording 1080 at, you know, 422 or whatever, it would be silly. You know, it's about a gigabyte a minute. And
to be fair, all that would really do is just make us look even uglier. Let's be honest about it.
Yeah, well, we couldn't do that here, but we could do it sort of with the fixed camera sort of stuff. But yeah, geez, astonishing.
No.
So
Okay,
we should have Gaz and Jamie Liddell this week. I've had Jamie Liddell kind of is there in his Nashville studio, so we'll hopefully have him along shortly.
He's keeping very still.
Yeah, well, he dialed in to check, and then, you know, it's that thing where you get the frozen frame where it's like that, where you're reaching for the off button.
How's the quality for me, by the way?
It's all right. Your video's okay. Your audio is a little bit gurney, but I think that's because you're probably getting it from a webcam mic, or so it's just a little bit. So yeah.
You want me to just is that a little bit better?
It's just what it is, you know, unless you've got a close mic, that's the way it's going to sound. But it's quite, I mean, it's acoustically manageable because your room is treated, so it's okay. Oh, I'll tell you what I did see while I was at Mesa as well was the Nuage. They had a big Nuage system there, and it did look really nice. Have you got the rolly desk thing that kind of you can put your little? You had rails that you could slide your clipboard along.
No, I haven't. I don't need that, but I've seen it. It looks great. Yeah, but I don't kind of need that on my system. But it's
no, theirs was quite a large format, so I expect it was probably a little bit bigger than yours. And it looks like it should be motorized, and you could have drinks or snacks on it, so it could just kind of, you know, come your way with another pretzel or whatever.
Brilliant. I should consider it then, just for food stuff.
Yeah, food stuff. Maybe some sort of dispenser. Yeah, roboticized dispensing system. So yes.
Yeah, the Nuage is, I have to say, really impressed with the Nuage. Love it.
It looks lovely. It really looks lovely. I mean, there was a lot of we did a couple of digital desks while we were there. I looked at the new Avid S6L system, and they've got 2 new surfaces for that. And, you know, I mean, it's still expensive. I mean, he said, you know, the entry level, which is the kind of 16 fader version with 112 input channels and 30, whatever it is, IO, is still going to cost you $40K, you know, $40,000.
Well, when I looked, I think I told you at the time when I got Nuage, I looked at the Nuage and I looked at the S6 at exactly the same time. And to say that it was, yeah, honestly, for the kind of money you were talking, there was no competition whatsoever. An equivalent to what I got 32 faders and, you know, all singing, all dance and everything. To get the same on the S6 was going to be about, I think it was about 30,000 more.
Wow.
And there was, honestly, the thing is that because the S6 is made to go with everything, it's essentially Pro Tools first and Nuendo kind of come second. Whereas with Nuage, it's very much Nuendo, which means the integration was even better. So there was no point whatsoever, apart from the fact that the S6 had more multicolored flashing lights, and that really did come down to the only thing really that was going in your favour. So
yeah.
You know,
Gentlemen,
we have people.
We do. Oh, hold on, I need to do that, and then we have everybody here. So, hello, Gaz.
Hello. Can you hear me? Okay.
I can.
Yeah, guys.
Ooh. Hey, what's up? Hey. Oh, this is fun. Wow.
I don't. First time we've met.
Oh,
Say again.
I don't think you've all met. Yes.
What's up?
The chap above you, Jamie, is Ty Unwin, who is a very prolific media composer. And this is Jamie Lid.
Prolific doesn't mean good in any way, though, does it?
That's Jamie. That's Ty. Hello.
Yes, thanks. Hi, guys.
But I mean, he is good. But I'm just saying the word prolific does tend to imply like good.
Oh, no. Don't ever imply I'm good, Gaz. Don't ever tar me with that
Oh,
right.
man.
So I think we have everybody.
Yes.
Yes. So you're back in the bosom of your woody library there, Jamie. It looks like you're missing a few tomes from the top shelves. You need to get you need to go to like some kind of thrift store and just fill it up with dusty volumes.
I've ruined myself because basically I filled that corner of the studio with a bunch of boxes, and we got one of those slidey ladders. But then, of course, I scuppered it because you can't
put
go
the boxes in there. I was going to say you have a slidey ladder. Oh, awesome! You could
slidey ladder. I've got that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I see it behind. Yeah, there we go.
Does that mean, are you every other day, are you recreating the Thomas Dolby She Blinded Me with Science video? Because that's what I would be doing if I had a slidey ladder.
Amazing. Haven't done that yet, but hey, I've got a 2-year-old and he hasn't even heard Thomas Dolby, so it's all on.
What?
Right.
Hey, you know, he likes science too, so
that's something to look out for.
Looking good.
Yeah, it's very promising. Right, fellas, I think we could probably run a show if I can remember how to do this. It feels like a long time ago, but we only lost a week. But I've been music messered, so let's rock.
Sorry about that.
Hold on, let me just get the Facebook thing ready to go.
I'm really like.
Okay, standing by. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 530 of Sonic Talk. This is the music podcast, or the podcast dedicated to music technology, software, music production, live production, controllers, sometimes DJ stuff as well, but all of the things and the technology that surround the kind of ecosystem of music, electronic music, live production, live performance, all of those things. I want to say hello to everybody in the chat room. There we are on YouTube Live every Wednesday, 4 p.m. You can join the fine folks there. You should get a notification if you subscribe to the channel, which is a very soft way for me to plug subscription if you're not already subscribed. And also we have our own IRC chat room, so you can go there as well if you like, if that's the way you like to do things. It's entirely up to you. I want to say thank you very much to Isotope, who are providing a prize this week. You can win a copy of Neutron 2, which is the excellent mix, visualization and analyzing and processing tool, plugin system that well, you should check out isotope.com/Neutron. That's right. Anyway, I want to say hello and welcome to everybody. We'll start over here with Mr. Ty Unwin. We haven't seen Ty Unwin for a while. Ty Unwin, media composer extraordinaire. Busy, 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 always burning the candle at both ends, but we're fortunate to have him, even on a sunny day when he could be outside experiencing the sun for perhaps the first time this year.
Look at me and my colouring. Am I going to be outside?
No.
Ever?
Well, you sometimes you have to, don't you?
I love the winter. I hate the summer. But
okay, well,
I may poke a leg out.
Well, there you go. But anyway, Ty, a pleasure to have you. Lovely to hear what your thoughts are on the various things, because obviously we've just come back from Music Messer, which used to be one of the biggest shows in the calendar, and it's sort of tailing off a little bit, less synth heavy as Superbooth has got it. We are actually at Superbooth in a couple of weeks, but we'll get on to that. Let's introduce another couple of our guests. We'll say hello to, if I got the button right, yeah, Mr. Gaz Williams, who's there in Bristol. Gaz Williams, bass player, producer, music technologist, and beardy fellow with a penchant for bass playing. How are you, Gaz?
Yes, I love playing bass. But I tell you, I'm so happy today. I mean, really simple thing. 7 MIDI leads came through the post this morning. So, and they're just like, all these little riddles, getting all little systems working and then having to pull them apart because you just need, now I've got I mean, is it a plethora? What do you call like an amount of MIDI leads?
I don't know, a bundle or what's a muddle of MIDI leads. Yeah, that sounds good.
But
I know what you mean. I know what you mean, though. Nice leads.
Thing.
They do make you feel good, don't they?
Leads,
having more than having more than I need. I just feel I've got a few in hand now.
You're MIDI lead rich.
It's a glorious feeling, I tell you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I am pleased for you. I really am pleased for you, Gaz. That's good to hear.
Thank you.
Good to hear. And also, that chuckling you hear in the background is Mr. Jamie Liddell, who is joining us from Nashville. Jamie is, of course, looper, songwriter, very successful songwriter. How's that massive Spotify count for that artist you were telling us about? Is it hit the 500 million?
353 million.
Wow, that's got to be worth what? $20 or something at least.
Yeah, I know. I have tried to work it out with various calculators. It's it should be able to fill up the books in the missing area there.
Yeah, your library is bereft.
I'm going to fill it up with basically, I don't know. What do you reckon, guys? About books about.
I don't know. Obsolete technology. That's always that's a very hipster thing to have in there. You could, and maybe you could fill it up with kind of Newtons and Palm Pilots and that sort of thing as well.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I can't actually reach that area of this room anyway, so I'm going to need some kind of drone to get up there. And
I've just had an idea. What about? It's like a really good idea. This a company who just takes old lovely books that are just really rubbish and just embed. Just for hard drives. So all these hard drives that we've got, loads and loads of hard drives, just like a way of just archiving all your hard drives in like embedded in a nice, really nice book. Yeah,
that's what a great idea.
It's your archive.
It is.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I like it. I like it
because all you can have all your books there on your shelf, but they're all.
Yeah, good idea.
I've just had a really good idea. Can I just question that?
Anyway, well, Jamie, last time we spoke to you, which was a few weeks back, you were off to LA for some writing and various other things. So how did that all go? You're back in Nashville, where it must be reaching 100 degrees by now this time of year, right?
Yeah, no, it's threatening. It's threatening some heat. It was great. It was what I've learned, and I don't know if this is useful to anyone else. Maybe it is. Since I do my podcast, Hanging Out with Audiophiles, I've been able to be more autonomous. Sort of, LA was a classic example. I went there with best intentions to write with everyone, but then what happens is, of course, people for various reasons cancel on you. And when I've only got a week out there, I need that time to work, you know. So, you know, I'm a dad, and it's like irresponsible for me to have a Monday off when I've actually booked it in advance to work with someone. But when that does happen now, I can kind of go through the Rolodex, as it were, and go, hey, who wants to do a podcast? And I'll go over and I'll knock out 2 podcasts in a day, and then I will have, you know, not wasted that day. So that's exactly what happened in LA. I got some amazing interviews. I got some big uns coming up. Ooh,
nice.
Yeah. Wow.
I should plug that. That's Jamie Liddell Music, isn't it? Yeah. If I remember correctly. What's the URL for that? I've got to put that down.
Yeah, no, that's true. I do pop them up there, and you know, the SoundCloud is where I have there. Yeah.
Here we go. And SoundCloud, iTunes, do check that out. Proving to be a very popular podcast. You see, the thing to do is, this is the smart thing to do, is rather than compete with each other, you sort of you try and get your competitors to collaborate. That's the idea. But anyway, that's not what I've done.
Absolutely. Like Nicki Minaj and Cardi B.
Ah, okay.
All they got to do is to track together.
Rather than the beef.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. That's a whole other discussion. But...
Do you think we should have some kind of...
like both of them.
Should we have some kind of very public Twitter spat so that we could kind of like big up this kind of notion that we're perhaps at each other's throats, and then next time you're on, everybody will come along and go, I wonder what they're going to say to each other. I wonder if that happens in real life. What do you think? Yeah. Anyway, Jamie, lovely.
I'm cool.
Okay, well, yeah. All right, well, we'll work on that. That's something, you know, that could be a campaign that we can, when things get a bit dippy, you know, and there's not much, we've got a bit of a dip, we can invent some kind of massive sort of problem where we can just
Logic,
publicly...
Cubase, Pro Tools, the divide, the great divide.
Oh, don't start.
Let's not. Anyway, as I said, last week was Music Messer. Look, I can prove it because we've got a whole load of videos that we posted up. And Music Messer, like I said, used to be a really big show. And the thing is what's actually happened is Superbooth has sort of come along and taken out a lot of the synth manufacturers who go there. So it's a very sort of light on the ground in terms of synth releases. There's a lot of other interesting technology there. I think we're up to about 55 or so videos. The team work their socks off because what's happened is, if you've ever been to the site of Music Messer, it is one of the largest geographically sort of fulsome sites. There are 11 halls, I think, each with 2 levels and a couple of plazas in between, so you can quite easily walk like a mile from the front entrance to hall 11, say, or to the Yamaha building. And what they've done, rather than consolidate it so that it's all in a similar area so people don't have to walk for miles, they've kept it really spread out. So you quite regularly have to walk a very, very, very long way just to go to your meeting or to find stuff out. So if they fix that, it would make it all right. It sort of makes it feel a little bit unnecessarily difficult. But there was a lot of stuff there. I don't know if anybody spotted anything. I found a few things myself, which I'll maybe talk about a bit later. I'm going to start with you, Gaz, because I know you do keep your eye on these sort of things, unless you've been radically busy, which you may well have been. Was there anything that came up, assuming you've watched any of the videos, which you may not have done, because it does take a while?
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting, isn't it? It's sort of how these things have changed and how the industry's changing and reflecting on that, and how big releases have not been, like NAMM, for instance, didn't necessarily have the big releases either, though, did it? It was,
no, they try and avoid the traffic. Yeah,
avoiding the traffic. So yeah, so in a way that's quite cool, because it makes it maybe a little bit more open for the more unusual things that came through. I was quite interested in the fact that there's a Neve collaboration with Steinberg on some new audio interfaces. I thought that sounded quite interesting.
I have a video for that. In fact, that's the what number video? I can't remember now. I have to actually 1, 2, 3. I usually 3, 4.
But the Valkyrie obviously is I think the big news, isn't it? Sort of. I didn't want to necessarily jump straight to that, but in terms of the news, but that's a very sort of small company, I guess, so isn't it? But,
well, I'll tell you what. Let me play a bit of that, and then perhaps we can riff on it. So this is. So this is the Valkyrie on the top, and this is the chap Manuel, who is.
Hello, Manuel. So you are essentially the product release of the show with your Valkyrie from Exodus Digital, and we're very fortunate to be here first to speak to you. So tell me a little bit about the unit. I mean, it's here in person. Is this final production or is this pre-production? Where are we?
Well, it's pre-production, so currently 5 of these exist, so I'm here at the show today to release it. The synth itself is feature complete. Now, I know there's been a lot of talk on the internet about the look and the feel of this, the orange panels, things like that.
The fact that it looks like a virus,
it could be varied, but the actual synth itself is feature complete, it's operational, everything is working. So really it's just the cosmetics, and also getting interest in this synth within the business, within the distribution channels.
Yeah, it's a long video. I shot like 25 minutes because, as you can imagine, it's caused all sorts of hoo-ha. Just because, the bottom line is it's 128 voice digital it's FPGA powered synth, 128 voices, 8-part multi-timbral, up to 5 oscillators per voice. Times 2, I think, if you stack them. 11 effects, 4 lots of stereo outputs, 96K, 24-bit over USB, class compliant. I mean, on paper, it's got a lot going on. It doesn't matter that it's analog or digital. I mean, that's a kind of, it's what it sounds like, which we got a little bit of a flavour, but it was very much his. But this guy has made this himself, sort of on his own. Around his day job over the last 3 years, which is and he's got the air of a man who knows what he's doing about him, which I really like that sort of auteur type thing, and that's something that's actually quite cool. But you can't help but realise that it is very, very, very similar to the Access virus, and I think perhaps problematically so. Before it finally goes out, it might need some cosmetic changes. But yeah, you brought this up, Gaz. I mean, what are your thoughts about it?
Well, I just think it's interesting, like slightly wider, that people are, we've been spoiled for choice really with certain parts of the market in terms of analog synths, perhaps, for instance. So whilst all that's been going on, there's been enormous
other synthesizers are available. Yes.
Oh, yeah. But like we did our Ventris review, the reverb review recently, and one thing we were mentioning about was just how like the DSP power in that pedal is, pretty significant. Hence the quality of the reverb. And I know this actually isn't DSP though, is it? What's this one? This is
FPGA.
Is it? FPGA.
which is it's basically a very, very fast integrated circuit. So it is digital, but it is programmed to the level where you create the wiring internally in software. So it's sort of DSP, sort of not, but he's got DSP programmed in it for the effects as well. But yes,
you know, so it's really interesting then to go, well, actually, if we move our gaze away from the, you know, analog to look at what we're capable of using with interesting modern technology, then this, I'm anticipating there's going to be a lot of things coming our way in the near future that's going down this way. So I think it's amazing that this guy's kind of come out with it now. I think
he's not. I know what you're saying. He's not the first. I mean, the Novation Peak uses FPGA as well. And I think System 8, if I correctly, the Roland System 8 uses FPGA as well as many other things. I'm not sure. I know, Jamie, as you've got a lot of analog old ladies there. I mean, do you have a digital section to your laboratory, or is that something that you kind of keep in the box?
Samplers.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, I have the Valkyrie here, actually, the prototype.
Is that a TI Snow?
Yeah, which is never used, you see. So that's an example of what happens in this studio. It's if anyone wants to buy it, I'm going to use this opportunity to sell it. So that's my basic take on all of this. I see it as if we just had better controllers, we wouldn't need synths like this because we just do it in a computer. But that's just me.
Yeah.
But that's just my weird take on it. But I appreciate hardware boxes. I like them when I'm touring, and then that's pretty much it.
Yeah, well, they do. I mean, that's a very good point. I mean, you know, if it can sound a lot like one of those, and maybe if it's got 8-part multi-timbral and 4 stereo outs, then it could take the place of a lot of stuff that you wouldn't ordinarily want to take on tour that might be just being played from a keyboard and doesn't need specific tweaking and sound design on the go, right?
I mean, that's a big deal. That's what this virus was for, and it was kind of amazing. I loved it live. It was really cool. It was really annoying to set up, but it did work well. So yeah, I mean, I like that, and the guy is amazing. I love these.
Brilliant.
He's a character. I mean, you know, good on him. It's just it's upsetting because in a way, yes, we talk about the movement of technology. Clearly, this guy's taken so long to evolve and make this damn thing that technology is ultimately, you know, obviously with Moore's laws factored in, it's moving ahead of him as he's developing. So he's always slightly behind the curve, which is, you know, part of the. I mean, he could always sell it to Behringer, of course.
Well,
I have no comment about how
I don't know
to the virus. It
might be well. Touche. Very good point. I don't know. Ty, you are an avid synthesizer acquirer. I know you've got some Access stuff. I mean, it's not the same as the Access because they're different code bases, and I'm sure, you know, one's an FPGA and one's DSP, but because of the FPGA is you can go further than you could go in DSP in the virus range where it's sort of stopped. I mean, I think they made a new version of it, but it's just a reissue. But is this something that interests you?
It should be, but it's not. But it should be, because I kind of feel I can't say I feel sorry for the guy, because exactly as everyone else has said, you know, you've got to admire the fact of what he's doing, and I do completely. And what he's come up with actually seems like a good synth, but it does seem a bit late to the party. And it's all right saying that, you know, because it's now FPGA, that's fine. But for Joe Bloggs, we don't really care if it's FPGA under the bonnet or if it's DSP under the bonnet. And we also, it's great having 128 poly, but if the virus can go up to, I don't know, whatever it is, a decent amount, you know, and polyphony is not the be all and end all, in the same way that being able to layer so many oscillators on top of one another is not the be all and end all. There's a lot more that's a lot more interesting than just having loads of polyphony and loads of oscillators. And I just think developing that and pushing that is a bit of a step backwards, really, because it's, let's be honest about it, every sound that was played on it, and I completely accept this is a pre-production, this is a prototype, but
well, and it was his style of what he liked, which was, you know,
but there was nothing on there, nothing, not a single sound that you couldn't get on any vast number of synths. I mean, loads, and any synth basically you could get these sounds. And I think the biggest problem I do have is the fact that I think he's shot himself in the foot at this stage by making it looking so close to a virus, because the fact of, even if it bears no resemblance under the bonnet to a virus, the fact that he's made it look almost identical, everyone's just going to say, well, it's just like a virus, even if it isn't. But so I think that's a stupid thing to do. But he seems a great guy. He seems like an intelligent guy. I wish him all the best. But I mean, I looked at this and looked at this and looked at this and thought I should be excited about this, and I didn't get even the slightest bit of a.
You see, if he'd have,
I feel the same way.
If you'd have put a massive lever that ran the whole length of it, massive lever, and that lever just sort of like goes from one oscillator to 1,000 oscillators on the lever, like a massive lever. Seriously, everything else the same, but just this big lever. Oh,
how big was it?
Like Frankenstein-esque, you know, that sort of thing. Power.
I know what you mean. For performance purposes.
Yes,
just
so.
I'm being a
maybe
bit
bell ringing ropes.
But I mean, you know, if you've got some really interesting stuff going on in there, then maybe, you know, making the controllers have really super access to those turbo features and making a, you know, that's what I'm just saying, with a big lever, or, you know, big get at the, make the good stuff, the special new stuff, make that kind of like
front and center, right? That's a really interesting point.
Yeah, that's true.
The problem is, though, the problem is just think for a second, take away the polyphony, take away the fact that it's not DSP, take away the number of oscillators. What is there on there that's actually new or going to make you sit up and take note?
Yeah, well, I can't answer that question. I mean, I will say the one thing that is interesting is that he said the point is he's able to. This is the proof of concept. You know, he's figured out how to get all of this stuff out of whatever FPGA he's using, and he can create numerous or different synth engines and features based around the same basic case, which is why it's the shape it is, because that center section with the controls and it's effectively the GUI in the OS can be pulled out and you can stick something else in and it could be something completely different. And I think that's probably the stuff that he's thinking ahead for. You know, maybe it's by design that he's really gone for the virus thing, so people will identify with it straight away, see that he's a smart guy, and then he can go, right, and then next year there's this, which is completely different, and this. I mean, that's what I would hope for him, because obviously there's that, like you say, there's not an awful lot of mileage in being a bit like, or a lot like something that's already 10 years old. I don't know if you probably agree with that, Jamie.
I'm feeling really bad. And then all of this is, I'm just feeling really bad because I'm imagining the sheer, I mean, I programmed someone a Max for Live patch the other day and it probably took me like 8 hours. And, you know, it does work now, but I was thinking, wow, that took me a lot longer than I thought. Imagine this guy, man. He's probably like 3 years deep. Like he's committed like his whole thing to this. And now we're just, it's easy to kind of dismiss it. But at the same time, it's important to be honest, because I mean, I mean, we are music makers and we're exposed to a lot of this stuff. And I kind of agree with Ty. You've got to have something that's going to make you go, okay, this is a unique box, genuinely unique. And like, I can't get anywhere else. We are ultimately, there's too much shit on the market. There's just loads. There's this like, and you know, the problem is computers run the game. They're moving ahead faster than anything else. If you just got controllers, software will come along and destroy this box. That's just the way it goes, you know? And so that, I just feel like people should be investing in a new way to, you know, play the computer. If you want to make a box that's flexible and future-proof, that's how you do it. You don't make a hardware box that has removable parts, because no. You know,
I don't think he was talking about the idea of you would buy a new bit for it. It's like the platform itself, the platform himself. He could just then create a new synth that was based around the rough architecture. Ty, you wanted to come in?
I just. Oh, sorry. Go on.
No, I think the thing is, at the end of the day, I think the thing that exactly as Jamie was saying, and I really want to say this, is that I really do wish him all the luck, and I think we all do. We hope it works for him. And we're being really harsh, exactly as Jamie said, because there's so much on there in the market to choose. I think the problem is with it is the fact that if you've got the opportunity to come up with something completely new in this way that he has from scratch, you would just kind of hope that he would just have something a bit more original. And I just don't think if he'd brought it out and gone, do you know what, the virus is coming to the end of its life. If he'd said, I'm just going to build the next version of the virus, because the virus is, because of the whole Motorola thing, that's going to go. The virus is going to disappear soon. I'm just building the next generation of the virus. If he'd said that, you could kind of go, okay, well, he's not trying to reinvent the wheel. He's basically continuing it. And because of the style, you could get away with that. But when you come with this approach that he's talking about, of, you know, kind of doing reprogramming and being able to change the box, look at history about how many times we've had this. This is going to be the hardware. You can change the software. It's going to be able to do this. It's going to be able to do that. And over the next however many years, I'm going to be giving updates. We're going to do this. How many times has that honestly come to fruition? Can you think of anything?
No, I can't. But I should clarify. I know. I just want to clarify something there, because the platform itself, it's not the kind of thing that you're buying into and you, the user, can change. It's that him as the developer can use that as a platform to build other synths that just use the same rough architecture. It's not that then, oh yeah, can I just buy a new front panel and turn it into a DX7? That's not what he's going for. So yeah. Yes.
I wasn't thinking that at all. Yeah, I wasn't thinking that at all.
Yeah, okay.
I was presuming you would just be, you know, kind of, you'd be able to download new firmware and turn it into whatever. But it's still the fact that if you look at that as an idea, most of those as concepts have failed. And what you kind of have to buy these things on is what they offer you here and now, because we don't know what's in this box 2 years down the line.
I think that's a
fair
point.
Honestly,
I agree. I mean, and I think the interesting thing is, you know, smaller manufacturers, they don't have to sell thousands and thousands of a couple of thousand units, and that would be a kind of pretty tidy turnover, and there would be, you know, even if it's just people who want to run a whole load of stuff live, they don't want to take a computer, they want to use, like you said, Jamie, they could use it as the basis of their set for if they're doing EDM or trance or whatever it may be. It's a box that they can plug in and they don't have to worry about a computer. And, you know, maybe that's the case. But anyway, I think he was talking about it being significantly under €2,000 is what he's aiming for. Whether that's possible, he seems like he's not an unrealistic person. I think he understands the whole kind of what it costs him and what it would end up in the shops at. And you know, he seems like a fairly sensible guy. He doesn't seem like a deluded sort of fellow that you sometimes think, this is mad, but what the hell, go for it. I mean, Schmidt, for instance, let's say that, you know, that is a crazy, ridiculous concept, but yeah, you know, there was something about it. It was the largesse and the ridiculousness of it, but it has the same sort of vibe to it, I suppose, in a way, even though...
The difference is with that, you're absolutely right. The difference is with that, A, it sounds amazing out of the box, and B, it does things that no other synth can do. The way that it does certain things, there's no other synth that can do it that way.
That's fair enough.
That's why that one's worth the money.
Okay, well, I feel I should move on, because last episode I forgot to announce the winner of the competition. So let's get that one out of the way. So first, a message from Isotope. Of course, Isotope will be we're showing you Neutron 2, which is their fantastic mix processing and analyzing tools, a suite of plugins that allow you to process individual tracks or mix bus, multiband dynamic EQ, which is very useful, dynamic EQ, as many of us will tell you, saturation, compression, analytics, track comparisons, multiband compressors. There's a whole load of stuff in the Neutron 2 suite, and also if you want to, you can control multiple neutrons from within the same interface, from the same new DAW. Powerful new gate feature. I mean, there is transients. I mean, there are so many ways in which this can be used to process your... In fact, this entire podcast is run through Neutron 2 as the final stage. What you're hearing is actually going through Neutron 2, trying to go for that FM hyped sound, which I think helps cut through on YouTube for that specific purpose, but I could just as easily go for a vintage 70s vibe if that's what we were going for, although perhaps wouldn't work on quite so well overheard on speakers and maybe a bit quiet, but that's what I've gone for with this one. So if you want to check out Isotope Neutron 2, please do go to isotope.com/Neutron. Full 10-day demo, lots of demos and lots of tutorials on how to get the most out of it, how to use the advanced techniques in your mix and your sound. We thoroughly appreciate their support of the show. So we should say we did have a competition
I'm 2 back. So we've got, we're missing, the last competition was for Ozone 8. And I have a winner for that, which I should mention now. It's a guy called Steve Tarazuski. At Satara, I can't pronounce this at all. Steve Tarazuski. I hope you can get that. And I think his Twitter handle is at Satarazuski. We were looking for the hashtag Balance Master and Ozone 8. So if you get in touch, you will get a full copy of Ozone 8, which was the last product that Isotope were looking at. But if you want to enter the competition, and also we got another one from last week, because I have to do 2, don't I? So last week's competition, which was Neutron, I'm terribly sorry about the complexity. My own mistake. We've got a guy called Grey Muth, who's called at Guradara Gray. He won a copy of Neutron 2. We tweeted the hashtag Neutron 2 and Clearer Mixes. Thanks to you both. Great work. So please get in touch, Grey Muth or Moot, and we will be able to give you both your prizes. But we have a competition this week as well. You can win Neutron 2. We're looking for Analyze and Mix as one hashtag, and Neutron 2 is the other hashtag. This is a Twitter competition, so the hashtag Analyze and Mix. With an I think I spelt that right. And also Neutron 2 to at Sonicstate and at Isotope Inc. So at Isotope Inc. and at Sonicstate. Tweet the hashtag Analyze and Mix and the hashtag Neutron 2, and you can be entered to win a copy. God, that's the admin out of the way. Sorry, that was a bit of a mouthful, but thank you very much for holding with me. So yes, so there's more. There's more. Let's not just concentrate. Valkyrie was obviously the big new release there. As you said, Gaz, there were 2 new interfaces from Steinberg, and these are, I mean, they've been releasing quite a number of these sort of interfaces. There's a 4-channel version, it's the UR-RT2 and the UR-RT4, and they're in conjunction with Rupert Neve Designs. And the reason that they've been kind of hyped, and it's actually quite an interesting idea, what they've done is they've put the Rupert Neve Designs transformers in there. Now, for those of you who perhaps know about this kind of thing, the transformer can make a huge amount of difference to the tone and character and the dynamic range of the sound. And this is actually quite a big deal. So I think anyway, and from the sound of it, you know, the Rupert Neve Designs, I mean, you would say that they would say this. They're very pleased with it, and obviously Steinberg are very pleased with it. I don't know whether it makes a lot of difference to everybody. I don't know. I'm going to come to you, Jamie. What do you use to record into? What's your kind of record path?
Yeah, well, I've been through a few. My current one is I've got a Burl, Bomber, ADC, and going into 3 Apollos, actually 3 Apollos and a satellite. So yeah, I'll use for any kind of important signal, I will use a Burl, which is obviously is famously using a transformer. So I can definitely say I prefer that sound for the majority of things I put in. And then when I run effects loops, I'll just use the Apollo in-outs, which is fine. And coming out of the Apollo 16, I come straight into my Crane song, have a set, and do the you know, D to A just via the AES cable, so I kind of don't have to come out the analog outs of the Apollos for that stuff.
So I can say, so you're pretty into the kind of concept of dedicated D2As and ADDs and the transformer sound. So that makes a lot of sense. I mean, these things are kind of quite reasonably priced. I mean, Gaz, we did we've done a couple of these. I think we're going to probably look at 1 or 2 of these in the future.
Cool.
It's quite promising, though, isn't it? Do you think? I mean, you know, the transformer sound is definitely a thing, and I haven't really seen any other people hit it at this kind of price point before.
No, it's really interesting. I mean, we've seen Warm Audio, who making like preamps with kind of sort of transformers and various things that you can swap by controls on the front panel. Obviously a very different thing to what we're talking about here, not an audio interface at all, but the idea of using the transformers as a, you know, as part of the coloring process. I'm now sort of in the market for a audio interface. My trusted Motu, I realize now they've discontinued it now. So now it's 10.12 on the Mac. They've stopped. So that thing I've been using for 10 years, and it's been brilliant. Yeah. So it's like, where to go? So I guess I'm maybe someone who's dead in the market for something like this. So I'm having a snoop around this, thinking, oh, that's quite nice as a and it's interesting to wonder going forward how many of the things that you need to maintain for backwards compatibility, like ADAT or SPDIF and things like that, which, you know, how much of that stuff do you need on a modern interface these days? You know, how many, you know, AES EBU on an XLR socket like the Motu has got. That's been pretty useful for me. I've connected preamps to that many times. So
yeah, I think that's a valid point. I think those connectors are important. Oh yeah, here's a picture of the there's a picture of the actual. That's the there it is, the Rupert Neve transformer. It's sort of black box. Beautiful. Yeah, isn't that a thing of beauty with the signature? I'm not sure how much he personally had to do with it, but it's a bit of a black side. I don't know. I'm going to come to you, Ty, because you use Steinberg stuff. Are your interfaces Motus? I can't remember what you use as your primary interfaces. Or are you?
100 and whatever channel MADI rig with RMEs at the end.
Okay.
So I basically just all keep it clean, and then I've used some for colouring stuff. I've got some Shadow Hill stuff, which uses transformers and colours it beautifully. But the way I work is I try to keep it as clean as possible going in, and then as dirty as possible coming out normally. So,
sounds like a parallel there, yeah.
Some irony there. But you're
good night
someone who I had a TLA 32 channel. What was that, Gaz?
A good night out.
Yeah. Yes, I can't possibly comment. So I used to have I used a TLA desk just as a 32 channels of, you know, kind of stem mixing and whatever. So I mean, I kind of used to use all that coming in and then going out again, but I've kind of now it's all very clean, very RME. But but I do use Steinberg stuff. So on for a traveling rig, I think, you know, this looks great. I mean, all the Rupert Neve stuff that I've used before sounds great. Steinberg stuff. The thing is about Steinberg interfaces, they're just incredibly functional. That's the thing. They're not.
Can I cut in?
Yeah.
Has this got that kind of thing that integrates directly into Cubase with some of the? Oh yeah, because the Steinberg interfaces have got that thing where, you know, the buttons are. Oh, you know, your monitor buttons in Cubase are sort of connected to the hardware. They sort of actually interface it.
I'm not sure because it's got DSP powered effects for zero latency and monitoring. So I think that's something they put in it. So it may well be. I don't know because I didn't shoot this one because I wasn't there on that day. But it's entirely. But I should quickly add that 2-channel version is let me see, what is it? It's €399, and the 4-channel is 649, which for that transformer sound isn't bad really, considering. I'm assuming it's not just adding a load of noise as well, which I imagine it's not, because the actual has your Nuage got Steinberg preamps in it or Yamaha preamps in it? Has it got that, or are you all digital?
The Nuage has no audio ins and outs. The Nuage is only a controller.
Right. Okay, I've got it. Got it.
They know all the hardware. It's all done with Nuage. You either normally do it via Dante, and then you can buy the Steinberg interfaces, or it's just easier for me because I had all the RME stuff, the MADI rig set up, so I just use it for that.
Interesting.
But
so Jamie, was
Steinberg...
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yep.
No, I was only going to say Steinberg interfaces generally are great in that they're just really functional. They don't have lots of bells and whistles. They're just really well, and they just work. End of story.
That's kind of what you. Well, Jamie, was there a point at which you were, you know, I mean, like most of us? I mean, I started out with a kind of crummy RCA cable SP diff into a Korg 1212 PCI card. You know, didn't think anything about signal path, even analog or digital. Was there a point at which you went, oh, a light bulb went off, and you said, I need X or Y. I need to do this to make it sound the best. Was there a sort of was there a light bulb moment for you?
Well, I had the same setup. Me and Christian Vogel, we started well. The first thing we used was the internal line in on the Mac, which actually, remember that era where there was Mac clones that were like in a box. We had like a Mac clone. Use a line in on that, then a Korg 1212, then a Motu 828. Now, I've been through them all. RME, I've had multiple RME interfaces. So, yeah, I mean, it definitely, it makes, nowadays, I think they're all pretty good. And I think the consumer does need, again, it feels a bit like market saturation. This is kind of a weird kind of attention, news grabbing, you know, collaboration with Rupert Neve, which was smart of them. because I think if they just put a transformer in by themselves, it may have been a bit of a weird move. So I mean, you know, it sort of has an air slightly to me of a kind of a prosumer sort of vibe, but I don't know why. It's
maybe
a little
so.
bit of a strange, because the price point and also the size, it kind of feels like you've got a laptop and you want to do it all at home, you know what I mean, and record your instruments. So it's kind of like trying to get a little bit of that Apollo dollar, obviously with the effects and stuff, but try to stand out as well. So it's a little bit of an odd one, because I would probably go with the Apollo myself, just because I like the effects so much that I would probably invest in that kind of universe. But that's just me.
Yeah, I don't know what effects that you can put on the Cubase thing, because it'll run sort of native plugins. The other thing is, you know, it's really interesting that there are still interfaces coming out with just USB 2, just USB 2. They're not even kind of thinking, well, let's put a USB-C on there as well, or let's put this or that or the other, USB 3. I suppose if you don't need the bandwidth, then what's the point? But I mean, to the end consumer, it's like, well, I just want to plug this in with a single wire. I don't want to have to get a dongle to stick that in and then stick it into something else. You know, and so maybe the investment it takes to kind of go to USB-C compared to the difference, you know, it might actually cost them just as much to put the dongle inside the unit as it costs you to buy the unit without the dongle. I don't know, but that's the sort of thing. I know, Gaz. I mean, because I still maintain.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's it. I still maintain Apple moved too quickly into abandoning USB with the USB-C, meaning that it's just like the clagnut market, really. It just feeds the stinking clagnut market. And the stinking clagnut market is a market that no one wants. You know, do you know what I mean? We don't want to have a load of these bloody little things, do we? It does wind me up. It does wind me up. So I think.
Hold on, I'm just typing. I'm just writing down. We don't want your stinking clagnut. That sounds like it could be a title there. But I don't know.
I think it was too soon. It was too soon.
I would agree with that.
People, it affects the end user just having to have just shed load of stuff. I mean, I think it needs.
I mean, let's put it this way, Gaz. Are you ever going to get excited when you get like a bunch of USB-C cables in the mail versus MIDI?
Oh, that's
an interesting thought.
Yeah.
Ultimately, no. You just be like, because you know that technology is already on the way out in some way. You know, it's just they're waiting to make that shit redundant so they can cash in again on. You know, these companies make so much money on cables. It's just kind of like,
well, that's true.
It's cynical. It's just like it's part of the natural way of technology to, auto redundant.
It is very frustrating. I mean, I go to Music Messer. I take this laptop here, which is a lovely i7 latest MacBook with 4 USB slots. But to use it in any useful way, I have to take a USB-C clagnut with to USB, which is a crummy one, but it's got a network cable in it as well, so I can use that. It gets really hot. It's also got an SD card reader, which is very useful. But then I plug that into a USB 3 hub, which has got a massive great power supply. So that's this much stuff I've got to take just so I can connect my hard drives, the network, and an SD card. I mean, it's just absolutely, but I've got this lovely thin laptop, which is great. But the stuff I have to take to connect to something else to actually use that laptop weighs about the same amount, which is absolutely infuriating. So yeah, I'm with you there. I think it's about time this got sorted out. And yes, it's nice to have a light laptop, and if all you're going to do is connect to Wi-Fi and live on the battery for 10 hours, yeah, okay, great. But if you're actually using it for anything that requires interfacing with the outside world, then you're out of luck, and it's bloody annoying.
Can I ask one thing, because it's something that I bought the other day. I bought a twin quad, a UAD twin quad for my traveling rig. Is there a USB-C to so in other words, a Thunderbolt 3 to a Thunderbolt 2 cable?
That's a good question.
You can buy the adapter, which I've got, which I think is causing the issue, because quite often the twin isn't recognized by the laptop. So I'm trying to just buy, rather than going through an adapter, one of Apple's adapters, just a Thunderbolt 3 to a Thunderbolt 2 cable. And I'll be damned if I can find one that exists.
I'm not sure there is such a thing. I think a place to look, though, would be probably OWC Computing. They do a lot of those kind of nifty, useful utility things. But most of them have some kind of dock involved. So you get the USB-C out and then it breaks out to whatever, which is...
I've got all of those. It's just I just want a cable. Just to be able to plug it.
That would be good. It would be a fat cable, though. You'd still have a big old thing to do all the conversion in it, I would assume. Because these cables are more than... you know,
yeah, I know.
It's not just a coax anymore these days, is it? It's like carrying all manner of madness. But you know, and it is cool. My laptop right now is sat here connected to 3 USB-C ports. One of them goes off to the Thunderbolt universe. All of my Apollos, like I got one of those Thunderdock kind of black magic things with 3 SSDs in it, and it's all working lovely off one cable. Then one's doing the power and the other one's doing all the USB stuff off a hub, and it works fine. But the problem is this little i7 touch bar 15-inch thing is a fanny nightmare, and it's sat right in front of me and it's fan up from the minute I open any app. So it's like ultimately a studio nightmare. But so it's you know, whatever, first world problems, but it is a little bit like first, I really needed a quiet computer. It's pretty much the reason I bought this thing. So I'm still. I get a bit of I do get a bit of fan noise with this thing, but I mean, and it's doing video stuff, but it's not. I can't tell if I can hear it at the moment because I've got my earbuds in. But yeah, I don't think it's not working very hard at the moment, so I suppose not. Anyway. Those are the Steinberg interfaces. There is more. We're a bunch of complaining old
no,
bastards.
I don't think. I think it's all right. Well, I think maybe what we should do then is get into a bit of actual something that we can listen to. Now, this is this will tie into another one. This is the SWAM voices for the Noise app from Roly, and I have to say. You get full marks if you can identify all of them. Obviously, this one's pretty easy.
Well, also because it tells you at the top, which is also a giveaway.
No, I mean the music.
Oh, that's Rhapsody.
Yes, I know. But, I mean, it's really...
How do they find such a crazy player? I mean, this guy, whoever this is, needs to get credit.
I think it's probably Parisi. It's one of the Parisi guys. But he is astonishing.
Man.
And this is a classic example.
Amazing player.
Of why you need good musicians to demo your gear, because then we all go, wow, I could do that.
Exactly.
I mean, you couldn't. You'd have to practice for years and be as good as this guy. But I think the bottom line with this what's really interesting, I think, about this is the reality, and this is all running on an iOS device, you know, via Bluetooth, or maybe it's via MIDI. I mean, there's 2 of those things stuck together, which is fine, and it's the Seaboard MPE thing. But it was more to do with the reality. The realism was just astonishing. And when you consider where we used to be able to find this stuff in the past, outside of hiring a real instrument, and whether it has any relevance, I suppose it must do to a degree. But I just was really impressed. This is they're called audio modeling. It's like a set of voices that they made to go with the Roly Noise app, and you can buy them as packs. They're like $10 each, and you get like various. There's all sorts of different ones. In fact, what I haven't done is brought the news item up, which is very bereft of me. Gaz, I mean it's really impressive, though, don't you think? That kind of realism that is, and this is coming out of, you know, an iPhone or an iPad. I mean, that is really, really kind of impressive stuff.
But I reckon if you'd have taken like something from a Casio or something from the 80s and managed to have all of that vibrato and control that the Seaboard is giving, would probably make, you know, and with the kind of musician's knowledge to emulate the instrument, you know, I think it kind of does go to show how going down that thing of multi-sample avenue for realism is just actually the expressivity control can bring the realism more than maybe necessarily the actual
content. Because it's not key switching. It's not the key switching thing. It's the actual expression of the notes you play. Yeah, I see what you mean.
The expression is sort of like, you know, and something I've been very, very interested in for a very long time, I suppose, really. For me, I've been playing around a lot recently, especially with the Expressive E Touche, the controller, which Have you tried that, Jamie? The touche?
Oh yeah, the bouncy block.
It's
a bouncy clave.
It's a thick. It's a beautiful thing. It
Yeah,
for
it
similar reasons to what we just watched. You know, but I mean, you know, like especially for a monophonic approach. So your left hand is, or whichever hand you are, would be on the touche, and the other hand playing the melodies, and just the fact that you can put these beautiful approaches and you can sculpt the notes in a really expressive way. It just makes.
They've got that ring as well now. What about the ring? Have you tried that ring?
Oh yeah, the MIDI ring.
I
Yeah,
haven't tried the. I haven't tried the ring.
I don't know.
I mean, it just shows you what. Yeah, the real world is a wobbly old place, isn't it? I mean, just look at how much wobbling goes on. I mean, it makes you realise when you're playing a static key on a keyboard, there's no wobbles unless you're going crazy.
We are wobbling on the. We are wobbling on world. Axis. Our axis is actually wobbling, isn't it? We don't sort of. We are.
Everything's wobbling. Everything's wobbling.
This is getting technical.
So I think it's fundamentally. It is a fundamentally wobbly world.
Yeah. So if you can't, you know, it almost makes you think. Like, imagine if your keys on your keyboard were actually moving, like rather than them actually being static, they're physically moving.
There are people have tried, and there are many that, as Rich Hilton would put, the doorstops of history. There are many doorstops consigned to the exhibition, you know, the Museum of Technology.
Strings, things, all that.
Yeah, all of that stuff. All of that stuff. I know, Ty. I mean, you've got a keyboard of some kind. Am I right? Do you have that? You have that technology. I mean, yeah, you can't. You know, this is pretty impressive. I mean, I know you are. You know, if you want to get someone to come in and do that, you probably get them to play, and come and pay someone to play the crump horn or whatever it may be, the bass flute. But okay, so it's 3 o'clock in the morning. You've just seen the email from the director, and he says, "What I really want is a clarinet lead line on this, and you've got to get it in by 9." There's no way that's going to happen. Could you envisage a moment where you might use something like this to wing it?
I do all the time. The time, but it's not using this. It is using the technology that Gaz said he didn't think it was, which is the whole doing huge multi-samples with various velocity layers and whatever. Because I mean, I need to put the swarm technology in its place, really, because it don't get me wrong, it is great. It's wonderful. And I think the fantastic thing about this is exactly as you said, Nick, is that the fact that this is running on iOS this is running on an iPad or an iPhone is great. It is great. But the Swarm technology is basically just ported down from the Swarm sample libraries, which have been around for some time now. And they're great. They're good, but they're limited. And I think what we're seeing on these demos is the Swarm technology shown off to its absolute best potential. So if these demos sound great, but in real terms, when you actually play with them, and really go into the inner depth of them, they are limited in what they can do and what they can't do. And these demos have been shaped, obviously, as they should do, to make these sound as good as they could. There's lots of things you can't do realistically on them, whereas the whole going down the huge gigs and gigs and gigs route, you can come up with things that are a lot more convincing in more than one way or one style. Because with these, you basically have to work within their limitations to make them sound realistic. With some of the big libraries, which essentially are what I've invested in for the last 15 years. I've done nothing but buy all of the big realistic, because most of my music is based on the fact of it being sounding authentic or sounding real. So I've got all of the big libraries when it comes to orchestral sounds or real instrumental sounds. That at that point, the huge libraries tend to be more versatile. I'm not trying to put these down because, as you say, the fact that they're running on an iOS is incredible. But compared to what you could do with a huge, you know, one of the VSL solo libraries, or, you know, kind of some of the Spitfire libraries or whatever, you know, in terms of realism, there's a limit to what you can do with these. I just wanted to say that in the kind of the pro world, there is another level of realism, which is...
Okay, yeah. I suppose that also applies to the sort of polyphonic side of things. So these are sort of very much geared to the mono side. So I suppose that might do it. I don't know. It's interesting to see, you know, the Seaboard is kind of it has got some sea legs, hasn't it? It has got some staying power. I mean, it hasn't.
you know, it does seem to be. I mean, how long has it been on the market for now? Probably about 5. Well, from the Seaboard Grand, getting on for 5 years now, maybe, is it?
Yeah,
Seaboard?
well, that's true. I wonder how many it's sold though, because I mean, you know, we're fans of it, and I dig that. I don't know. I mean, Jamie, you can't beat. I mean, you know, one of the things that makes you so great is you can articulate your voice into musical ideas very, very quickly via beatboxing, via looping, all that sort of thing. I mean, I guess the actual kind of the goal, the holy grail would be if you could articulate with your voice to play these kind of things for that level of expressivity. And I wonder if that's not as far off as we think. It might be, I suppose. There's going to be some latency.
No, you're so right. I haven't even... I from time to time, I go down that road, revisit that kind of thing. You know, obviously, you know, machines like the Korg MS-20 with its pitch tracking, and now, obviously, in the modular world, you can do that pretty well, amplitude and pitch tracking. In CV, obviously, MIDI is not your friend when it comes to that, because it's too, you know, it's too lo-fi. I mean, and ultimately, you know, the Continuum fingerboard, these technologies that decided to use OSC or higher fidelity standards to kind of access, you know, depths and dimensions, we're kind of thinking on the right lines for futuristic controllers, even though these squidgy interfaces are slightly odd to me. But obviously it just takes getting used to. But I think, yeah, wouldn't it be great if Spitfire specifically designed something with Seaboard, like, in mind, where they could, like, access, like, harmonics, you know, different, you know, looking at the nature of the instrument and sort of taking it apart a little bit like a physical model might, but using also the sheer grunt of multi-samples, and so getting the best of both worlds, as it were. But I mean, that could be a nice, using crossfading as opposed to switching, for example, all kinds of technology. You could, if you were not shy of using gigabytes to achieve, you know, resolution on a single sound, and you also were using really high resolution controllers with some kind of new school interface, then we might be into, you know, we might be able to make a lot more musicians redundant. It's going to be great.
That's a thought.
I'm coming off the cynical guy.
That's all right.
I mean, I like that idea.
Do you think there's a way to make a recording sound better than the thing itself? So if you were there in front of it and the thing making the sound, but you recorded it, put it through this incredible thing, and then played it back at exactly the same volume and exactly the same sort of pan as the thing
heard
itself.
Let's Dance, like, you know, Bob Clearmount in. I mean, those are meant to be real drums, aren't they? I mean, no, it's true. I mean, I think ultimately that's been the goal of recording sounds, at least in the pop world, for ages. I think in orchestral stuff, it's more this kind of honest picture thing, isn't it? And that no one wants to use close mics because they're ugly. Everyone wants to use the deckers or this distance. So you know, realism.
I'm just wondering though if you could make it sound more realistic than the thing itself.
I don't agree with that, because when I do the because I specialize in doing orchestral stuff, and I never ever sit there to try and make it sound. I just, all I ever do is make it sound good. I don't give a monkeys if it sounds realistic or artificial or whatever. All I'm bothered about, there are two types. It sounds crap, it sounds good. That's all I'm bothered about. And so it's like people say about sample libraries. The amount of people that ask me, how can you use that sample library that's recorded in this hall with that sample library that's recorded in this hall? You should never use these libraries together. Who said I shouldn't use them together? They sound great. I don't give a monkeys whether it sounds realistic or doesn't sound realistic. I just want it to sound good. And it's great because there's a real movement coming through the whole TV and film genre now, which is basically following that. Because a few years ago, everyone was trying to make things sound as realistic as possible. Absolute horse, whatever. It needs now. It just needs to sound good. And so I use closed, for example, like I said, I use close miking on strings all the time, which actually a lot of the time takes away from the realism, but it actually increases the presence for everything, which is exactly what you
get a bit more of an Eleanor Rigby, almost like taking a more of a pop approach to strings.
Exactly. So
interesting. I mean, I wonder. I mean, It's interesting in the way, I mean, because we've talked about this with pop music, everything's become hyper-real. Vocals become processed so that the pitching almost becomes an effect. So the imperfection is squeezed out and is replaced by other imperfections which we can control via technical reasons or whatever. And, you know, the layering up 18 bass drums to get that one great sound, so that we end up with these very minimal arrangements but with massive monster sounds that occupy all the space. I can see that in orchestral stuff, you know, you get to the point where it's like, I'm not just using one Kodo drum library on this drum boom thing, I've got 17 of them, and it just sounds so amazing, you know what I mean? So you end up with this sort of, it does become hyper real, and maybe that, but that's what makes it sound good and fresh, because we haven't heard it like that. It almost becomes a kind of caricature of itself.
Coming to that point, I don't know whether you've covered this yet. Have you covered the Spitfire Hans Zimmer strings yet? Have you done?
No, we haven't. No. Well, we might have mentioned that they came out. I can't remember now.
It's a library that's worth thinking about. The only reason is that do you know what the concept of it is? Essentially, they got 340 players, 300 odd players, string players, to do the whole Hans Zimmer thing. Basically, Hans kind of oversaw the project in terms of making sure it was done with the right engineers, his engineers, and making it sound fantastic. But essentially, they used like 60 cellos.
That same thing, so it's maxing it out, right?
Absolutely. And then they split it down into sections of 20, all different players. There's no processing going on. These are all different players. And they made this incredibly huge string library that does it sound like a string library? Yes, it sounds like strings. Does it sound like orchestral strings? It sounds like cinematic strings. But the main thing is, compared to what you would talk about being a realistic string section, it isn't that it sounds realistic, it's just an option. It's a different palette that kind of sounds real, but also has this kind of grandiose sound, which is just incredible. And it sounds kind of so realistic, it's not realistic, if that makes sense. I know that sounds...
I suppose, but it's sort of the same thing. It's like, do you want the car that only does 0 to 60 in an hour, or do you want the one that does it in 3 seconds? If you could afford it, if it was available, you'd go for the one that was betterer generally. So I mean, I think everybody would tend to gravitate towards that as the de facto sound, unless you're going for a quartet or something which is tiny. But then, you know, the quartet might evolve into something whereby it's a quartet, but it's 8 of them all together that sound a certain, you know, do you know what I mean? It's not a section, but it's a sort of a quartet.
But that's the thing. That's the problem, is that trying to convince people, because what they see on people growing up with, you know, kind of JV string libraries or you know, kind of a patch that says orchestral strings. It's trying to convince people that one violin sounds different to 2 violins. 2 violins sounds different to 4. 4 sounds different to 8. 8 sounds different to 16. 16 sounds different to 60. They all have a complete different sound. It isn't just the same sound multiplied. Right. They all have a completely different textural thing, and it's only when you kind of study orchestral writing that you really get to know this. And it's the same with all instruments. That's why there are some libraries like 8DO that have done their ensemble patches that are basically multiples of guitars. They have like 12 guitars playing, or you know, it's a different sound. It doesn't just mean it's a guitar but 12 times better. It means that it's a different sound.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was the wall of sound thing too, wasn't it?
The wall of sound, yeah. The same. The wall of sound, yeah.
Absolutely. Exactly the same thing.
Just, I mean, you know, in pop world. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's true. I mean, now we are spoilt for choice. I mean, once again, I mean, synth market is saturated, and I think in the presence of these incredible libraries that Spitfire and others are making, it's a pretty incredible time for bringing that realism in. And I think what I like about that is a lot of people have the libraries, so in a way now the excuse is not I don't have the sounds. The only thing left is how good is your composition.
Yeah.
How
I don't have the talent. Yes.
Because I like the Social Network came along and did something completely different with scoring and sonically changed the game. They weren't playing in a way, going down the well-trodden path of like everything sounding like, you know, epic, like Hans Zimmer kind of paranoia action work, which is sort of, you know, tempting. they kind of like were forging their own path with synths and stuff. And I thought there's also an open ear in the cinematic world to people getting inventive and making their own bastardized form. So you could take a great sample library like, you know, Spitfire, and then run it through a guitar amp and just like do some lo-fi shit with it and make a weird new mellotron, for example, run it all to cassette and like take time to make something unique. And I think a lot of people should take the stock sounds that come out of the computer. My recommendation would do that and then somehow make it your own. Somehow, like, don't just kind of layer up a bunch of ensemble shit and go, I've got the big string sound, because ultimately everyone's got that now. But what they don't have is some way of thinking outside of that and going, okay, I do have 60 cellos. What could I do with 60 cellos that would totally blow my mind? And sort of thinking about the sheer power of that and putting your mind into it and making something that makes people go, holy shit, this is truly incredible.
Get them drunk, then see what happens.
Get them drunk, yeah.
Gaz, I think you were trying to get in there.
Oh, well, something I've just been doing more and more.
Sorry,
taking so I've kind of, you know, in the last few years I've just stopped using VSTs almost completely, and you know, it's just I don't make sort of film music or anything, so I don't, but I've got more and more into using just like hardware as almost like each piece of hardware like a plug-in, but it being an actual, you know, physical thing. I mention this because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to read about a certain classical technique, and then I'm trying to then apply that classical technique to the synthesizers. So not trying to make it you know, like go to a classical library, but actually go to the synthesizers and apply the like as an example, I've been playing around with, is it Chepananin, Russian TCH
Cheppanin.
I can't. Chepananin. Oh, he's a Russian. TCH. Anyway, but his scale is really interesting scale to sort of play around with. It's just like a semitone, tone, semitone, tone, semitone, tone. It's like a nine note scale. But I think the point, what I'm trying to say is, this going this other way, like the opposite way, rather than trying to make like realistic orchestral music, taking some sort of orchestral techniques and applying them to sort of synths and sequences, I think for me is really interesting, because once all of the devices are sort of working within certain rules, it starts sounding like orchestral music, even though the textures are just different synthesizers because of I
mean, look at Raymond Scott, you know, back in the 50s. Some of that, he was a classically trained arranger and then turned his mind to making music with synthesizers. It still sounded like really well arranged music, and which made it super compelling and emotional. And like, obviously the oscillators were all probably valve oscillators, and they had a great tone inherently as well, but it was at the hands of a skilled composer. And I think much of all these online courses teaching everyone a lot of stuff, I think the new online course that is severely missing is like learning about incredible arrangement history and how to kind of respect that and learn and grow that, because I don't think there's no shortage of sounds anymore, and there's no shortage of things sounding big. I mean, I think we need to possibly get over this obsession with like everything being yeah, I don't know. I like the idea that arrangement becomes the most important aspect of making music at this point.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really valuable point, and I think that's something, you know, I mean, we've talked about this before, you know, it's like learning some kind of new musical theory technique so that you can apply it and that sort of thing. I mean, that's why I really like using duophonic synths, because the whole thing then becomes about counterpoint, because you've only got two notes and they kind of sound at the same time. But you can create some amazing atmosphere and inferred chordal work just by having two notes that are moving around. And, you know, I'm not musically skilled enough to kind of get the most out of it. I'm sure if, you know, you're probably used to all of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Oh. Yes. Anyway, we could talk about this for ages. I don't know if anyone's got any more time. I mean, there were a couple of things I wanted to talk about, but I think we've probably run our course. Just a quickie, it's probably worth mentioning. Did you see the mix face?
We're here at the Studio Logic booth,
which was the new.
see your lovely Sledge and Sledge version 2, but you've got a new.
He was a really nice guy. This guy.
He's one of the developers behind audio modeling as well.
That looks like.
I won't play the whole thing. I know I say that all the time. Essentially, MIDI controller, but it's also a zoning setup. So you can plug a USB device into it, a host computer. You can plug a USB host device, and it's also got a Bluetooth connection. So all of those individual devices. So if you had an 88-note keyboard plugged in a host mode, you could set up 4 individual splits on that, because it'll zone it all up and have different layers of controls for that, and also run transport control. It's just a really clever and nifty idea. The only thing it was missing was MIDI I/O, which seemed a bit of an oversight, but you know, some smart stuff. Studio Logic were on fire actually at their booth. That was one of the people that had like 3 things, and the Numa 2X compact. Gaz, I imagine that might be something that was exciting for you. The mixed face, that actually was quite a hot product, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I only had a brief look at it, but then what was the thing about it? You can do
what it will basically do is allow you to take a MIDI input, and then you can say, okay, from this octave to this octave is one layer, which would go out to one of the other MIDI controls on this channel, and then this channel, and this 4 splits.
Gotcha.
Each zone or layers, and it basically becomes the brains of a master keyboard, as well as a MIDI controller, as well as a DAW controller, all of those things, and that's kind of neat. Sorry, Jamie, you wanted to come in as well there, sorry.
Oh, I just thought he was a really nice dude. And I like the Bluetooth aspect. Can you do the Bluetooth at the same time as USB?
Yes.
I mean, you can. Yeah. I mean, so that's cool. I mean, because it's for me, I've never really got into the iOS world, even though there's some really amazing stuff. I feel in a way like that's probably where my head would go next, in a way. I don't know why, but like having something to control all of that that's nice and convenient, that'd be good.
Very useful.
Seems like it's good at that. Yeah, very nice.
And you can also set it up so you have different presets, and so you can switch between what's addressing.
Yeah, it's got memories on board.
Or the Bluetooth. Ooh. I mean, this was made initially to go on, because my main controller is a Studio Logic SL88 Grand, which for me is absolutely still the best controller out there, period. I mean, it's gorgeous. And this box was made, it's magnetic, so it basically just sits on, initially it sits on an 88, and it just sits there, and it's all made perfectly for that. But it can be used with anything. And when you've got an 88, an SL88, it just expands all of the natural splits and controls, obviously with more faders. Anyway, so for me, it's an absolute no-brainer. For me, it's of course I'm going to get one. But
yeah, €200, bargain.
I mean, for what it is, nothing. It's a great price. Great price.
Yeah, it's the only thing that's slightly similar was the little thing I bought, which was the Sipario, which was the little touchscreen MIDI router, which is about €300. It doesn't have any faders or anything, but that's really cool. And you could get up to 8 zones, and it'll just spit out MIDI program changes. So you call up a preset. I used it in my live rig, really handy. You press the button, it's like this song or this part of this song, changes the splits, changes the routings, changes the controller mappings, all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, Gaz, it looks pretty neat, actually.
Yeah, well, just on what you were just saying then, it's something I've been doing with Electron Analog 4. It's got the multi-map mode on it, and that's something that's similar again. You can define, I can't remember how many you can have. You can have loads, a region, however many notes that is, and within that region you can there's a whole bunch of things you can do, like you can set up a region to switch patterns, set up another region. Well, the way I've been doing it on my MIDI bass is I can have it play a different patch on every single fret, but being in the right note, and it's really bizarre. The patch switching is so cool, because any overhanging notes, any decays will carry on going. So you can make the most.
We need a video of that, Gaz.
Yeah,
I'm get a video of that.
I'm working on it.
I want to see that.
It's amazing. It's
awesome,
trying to work out. And what it blew my mind is I can have a different arpeggiator pattern on every patch. So essentially, every single note can have a different associated arpeggiator. And I'm finding it really interesting, because if you hold the note, the arpeggiator will run. But if you just play the front of it and then release, you just get the note. So you can make it a combination of notes that you're playing, and then held notes which go into their arpeggiated pattern.
Have you got a name for this? Have you got a name for this? I think you've made a new instrument there.
I'm building this MIDI rig at the moment. It's blowing my mind. Honestly, this stuff is bonkers. I make a speech thing at the moment, which is just, it's bonkers. I've got a different famous speech on each string of the bass and then split them up into words. And I can have different conversations between the different strings of different speeches. I'm trying to make really nasty clashes of speeches as well, just in terms of what the speeches are about. And then and with the expression pedal, you can pick different different parts of the speech. You can move like where the
wave slicing. Man, we need to get onto that.
It's just like, it's crazy, but I don't know what.
Maybe next time you do that, you should just hold your bass and not talk next time. You just use pure bass to talk. Just be like Stephen Hawking, like funk version. Just lay it always do all Stephen Hawking speeches.
That is an awesome concept.
That's
awesome. What a great idea.
Yeah. Okay,
fellas, I think we're probably at the point where we need to wrap things up, but I really appreciate it. We could go on for hours, and it's always a pleasure having such a collection of interesting individuals to share this time with us. Jamie, thank you very much for joining us from Nashville. Always a pleasure to have you on. Yes, don't forget.
I don't know how much yet. Very reasonable.
Very reasonable. Well, yeah, access Valkyrie.
To that guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Jamie, thank you very much. Are you back in? You're back in Nashville land. Have you kind of got any projects on the go that you need to plug? Obviously, the podcast.
Yeah, obviously, the podcast, hanging out with audiophiles, and I've got some major guests. I'm talking like as large as it gets.
Nice.
So stay tuned for that.
Excellent. That you can find.
I've got my OBXAs coming back today out of repair. And it's fully functioning, so I'm probably going to be lost in a world of like, nostalgia for at least a day. And I'm also getting a Marshall Electronics time modulator 5002.
Oh, is that the Hendrix one?
I don't know. No, I don't. I think it was a Stevie Wonder box. Something in Key of Life, kind of more the ADT effect you hear on some of his vocals. You know, that crazy flange effect.
Well, that sounds like you're gonna have a lot of fun.
Stevie doing it.
Yeah,
it's
nice.
Extremely expensive, and I hope it's as good as I hope it's going to be.
It's going to change your life.
It probably will, because I use the Lexicon Primetime like on a daily basis. I think it's probably one of my favorite boxes of all time. So this will be right next to it. Those are my kind of boxes, like Gaz. That's my world.
Nice. Well, keep up with the podcast at jamieliddellmusic.com. Do check that out. Thanks very much, Jamie. Pleasure having you. Also, Mr. Ty Unwin, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I hope your workload has decreased a little anyway. So that
You're joking. I'm waiting for a whole load of stuff to arrive as well.
Okay. Well,
what are you getting, Ty?
On the way, I've got my Quantum that's hopefully arriving really soon. I've got Mini Mood reissue, which I had to buy one before they went under. It's got a Mini Mood reissue. I've got Eventide H9000, waiting for that.
Damn, you're going large.
I've just bought Poly NC, which is amazing.
Yay! Amazing.
Oh, yeah, I've got one.
I love that thing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely love it. And what else have I got arriving? Some other stuff, and I can't even think what it is now. But I've got other stuff. Yeah.
Wow.
So
good for you.
What's the Quantum?
That's the Waldorf Quantum.
Yeah. Right.
Which we did get a slightly better demo. They're starting to fill it up with actual patches, and so hopefully looking forward to hearing some. We'll probably get some more of that at Superbooth. Obviously, Superbooth coming up. We'll get a bit of that going on as well. Anyway,
Alexander Trepnin, TCHEREPNIN. Trepnin. Trepnin scale. Semitone tone, semitone tone, semitone tone. Like you do a whole tone scale, but like semitone tone, semitone tone, semitone tone. Just get loads of things just working in Trepnin scale and have a bass going down slow. I tell you,
I love it, man.
Amazing.
You know what you can do? Put keyscape into all kinds of different temperaments and tunings. That's an amazing way of using keyscape. Run a MIDI file through keyscape doing a Celeste, and then just change it to microtonal, and you're in a world of joy. I did that in one of my podcast episodes. It's really good stuff.
Cool.
Yes, gents. Awesome.
Right,
Thanks for
having me. Thank you very much. We're off again. And Ty Unwin, thank you very much for joining us too. And of course, Gaz as well.
Thank you. Any topics next?
Yeah, well, there weren't really any this time, to be fair. Thank you very much, Gaz, as well. And
My pleasure.
We'll all see you again at the next show. Thank you very much. There will be a show next week, but the week after will be in Berlin, so there won't be. See you next time. Thank you very much
That's
for
where
watching.
my old studio was.
Oh, lovely. Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
man.
See ya.
Right.
Bye.